that is a long process of passing out all the bills. As I talked last week, we have a process now. Any bill that passes the House has to go over to the Senate to be ratified. It goes through the whole committee process, gets voted out on the floor. If it exits the Senate in the same version it exited the House, with no amendments, it goes on to the governor's desk for signature.
How often does that happen? I know, too, they have sometimes bills that are House bills and Senate bills that are pretty much the same. But if they were to come out of the House, go to the Senate, is it often that things aren't changed?
Lots of times things are changed. It's quite funny how the Senate has a difference of opinion what the laws should look like. And we have a process in the very end where we reconcile the bills or not. It goes through a process of, it's a quick motion and vote from the floor. We concur, we don't concur with the changes that either body made. And then in the end, if we can't get either side to back down, which a bill of mine that happened on mine on fire mobilization last year, if that happens where we get to an impasse, I file paperwork that says I would like to go to conference. We went to conference and mine ended in a 6-1 victory for me, and so we overrode the Senate's position and it went on to the governor.
Tell me a little bit about these two bills that you had come out of committee. It was 2889. This is where you kind of get a better understanding of your bills for utility payments.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know this, and this came from a constituent in the Bremerton area that had to do a public records request to find out what tax rate he was paying on the city-owned utilities. And we think that it's good government policy and good for the people that are paying the taxes to know what those tax rates are. And so this was negotiated with the Association of Washington Cities, the ability to put that rate in an insert in your bill or on a website. We gave them 3 options, so they didn't have to spend a lot of money reprinting the bills or changing things a lot. But we think it's good government policy for the local government entity, especially municipalities are the ones that charge these fees, to be open and honest with the tax rate.
So you'd see something where it would say on a water tax, but then there'd be no kind of parenthesis, blank point, blank percent. That point wasn't on there.
It wasn't. Yeah. Some municipalities do, and I
Sure.
got to give credit to those that do. There are a lot that are very open and honest. This is what we tax, and some don't.
The other one looks like it could be a new on-demand service, 2783.
Wouldn't that be neat? So imagine you spend your whole day in an office building or such, and you can on an app type in that you want your vehicle fueled.
Yeah.
And they just come and fuel it. Imagine how much of your day you now get back if you're that office worker. I think it's good, but I also pointed out the how well it could be used or how we could use it in a disaster.
Sure.
If we started having, major infrastructure problems, and these are deployed strategically around the states, they could then regionally respond to help do the initial fueling for emergency vehicles or cars that need to get out and move, generators, those sort of things. But it was it was kind of a real unique way it all came together. The fire marshal's office decided we really wanted to be a player. The code council really wanted to be a player. And environmental groups wanted to be players, so they all got together. We convened a couple meetings. We came up with some best practice of how to do this. It was permissive, not very restrictive, but it kind of streamlines the process of getting this service permitted, done safely, without injuring the environment and without causing undue harm.
It's like Uber Eats for your vehicles.
Yeah.
It kind of is. It's a really neat idea, and
It really is.
And we're excited that because the process, I think it's going to run through and pass because we answered the environmental concerns. A lot of people talked about well, when you fuel it and there's a fuel leak, you spill, and what are you going to do? So the answer is they have a catch device that sits right underneath the nozzle. They also have a drip pan that goes under your where you fuel your fuel nozzle, and if there is a storm drain in the parking lot, they have to seal and cover the storm drain before any fueling can happen. And we ask the people that we're bringing up the environmental concerns, are you environmentally trained when you fuel your vehicle? Because every Washingtonian that drives is now a fueling expert.
Yeah.
How many times does it spit back at you, and
Sure.
how many times does it leak? On this one, you'll probably get 0. So I think we answered the environmental concerns. We answered the conveniency, the idea that convenience would be a plus in this one. And we also brought up, and we talked to the company, and they'd be happy to serve as emergency fueling capabilities in times of disaster.
You know, the other thing I think about too is this, as an aside to this, on a day where like it's employee day or something.
Yeah,
The
wouldn't
boss
it be neat?
could call up and say, "Hey, let's fill up everybody."
They certainly could, and we brought that up as a neat idea as well. And you come in on fumes, and you go home, and
Yeah.
oh my goodness, I got a full tank of fuel. That would be quite a perk.
Don't even think about it. The other one that happened, and it looks like, and we talked to your counterpart, Representative McEwen, he wasn't entirely sure whether or not this would go through just because of the timeline of the session, but the sports betting thing seems to be moving closer and closer, and perhaps even faster than folks in the House thought. What are your thoughts on this? Is it something that's time for the state to expand this a little bit, or what?
So I'm really not a fan of the idea of online sports, app sports betting.
Uh-huh.
I think that expansion's kind of ridiculous. There seems to be an appetite in the state to do in the casino sports betting, kind of like Las Vegas, Reno, Nevada sort of betting. We'll see how it goes. I'm kind of either way on it. Gambling is an addictive trait, and I want to be very careful that we're doing it in a reasonable and responsible way.
So it moved out of committee 25-7, going to the House for a vote here before the end of the session. It'll have to go over to the Senate, of course, as you mentioned, as things are going back and forth there. Anything else that you want to share with you?
Well, I was quite frustrated yesterday about the knowingly infecting somebody with HIV.
Yeah, what's that one?
So it's an attempt to destigmatize, is how it was portrayed, the crime of infecting people with HIV. And the stated goal was, they stated that, at best now with all the medical treatments, it's now a chronic condition. And I just disagree with that. It's a life sentence is what it is, and it's knowingly. We've tried to get several amendments that would say if you knowingly infect a child, if you knowingly infect somebody under 18 years of age, it would still be elevated to the penalty, the felony. Most of those weren't taken. They took one small amendment about those 13 years of age and younger. I don't know if you remember, there's some. With my statute of limitations bills, there was always a stigma of age of consent.
Mm-hmm.
And some want to continue to lower age of consent. I do everything I can to raise age of consent in Washington State. And I just think that the gentleman thing, or the collegiate thing to do would have been to accept those amendments that would exempt giving lifelong sentences to our youngest and most vulnerable in society. I was very disappointed in it, and we gave the good fight. We're hoping to continue the fight in the Senate to see if we can stop or slow this thing down, or get some of the good amendments we tried to get in the House.
So what were the ways that you talked about that were knowingly passing this on? Is these stories where you hear of somebody sits in a movie theater seat and there's a needle there? Have you ever heard that story?
Yeah.
And then there's like a piece of paper that says, "Now you have this," or is this through people having sex and stuff like that?
So a multitude. So it could go as just not telling your partner that you have sexual relations with, that you are HIV or AIDS infected, through and including drawing blood out and injecting blood in someone else. They made really on their face terrible arguments about, well, with this one, if I sneeze on somebody, I knowingly know you didn't, because that's not a significant exposure, and we know more about the HIV/AIDS virus that really, unless you have a significant open sore on your face and the sun is at the right angle and the moon's at the right angle, there's no way you can transmit HIV/AIDS that way.
Those are old arguments.
Yeah, that's totally old arguments. So these are really terrible, dastardly acts that needs to be treated the way that they should be treated, and that it should be a felony. And a felony is not going to give you a life sentence. After 3 years doing all your makeup stuff, you can now legally have your felony wiped off your record and say, I've never been convicted of a felony when applying for a job and those sort of things. So the life sentence of the monster that did this is 3 years at most. The life sentence of the individual that received the virus is still life sentence. Long time. You have to spend the rest of your life on terrible drugs that have really terrible side effects. Now the side effects, don't get me wrong, are getting better.
Right.
I mean, people are living longer, and they're more productive. They don't have as many down days as they used to have. They're living quite active lives, and that is a testament to where society's finally got to. We saw it as something that was a world health issue. We tackled it. We haven't cured it, but we're going to.
I saw them politicizing this years ago, and it's sad because if it were an argument of slowly poisoning, like if you put poison in your spouse's coffee every morning, nobody would question that was like a bad thing to do, and you should slam the book at somebody. I mean, that's
premeditated, and knowingly infecting somebody with a lifelong disease. Significant disease process that is not, if it's not treated well, will end your life, is premeditated.
Sure.
And nobody can convince me otherwise. So sad state of affairs yesterday at the Capitol, but we're going to continue to fight on to see if we can fix it in the Senate and see if we get better policy for Washington.
35th District Representative Dan Griffey. Good to see you, Dan.
Good seeing both of you. Take care.